I've brought you to this dry river valley in southern Spain several times before in videos, but never for this particular reason. Today we're going to go gold prospecting up in those hills. So this terrain, this geology around here does look like the sort of mountainous, rocky terrain, the sorts of places I've seen on other people's gold prospecting videos, usually in places in North America, Canada, and so I don't know for sure that there's going to be anything to find here. However, what I do know is that these hills historically have been mined for precious metals. Silver, I know, was mined up on the White Cliffs up there, Las Peñas Blancas, that we walked up in a previous video, and definitely copper and lead, iron, other metals have been mined in these hills since Roman times and probably before. Now, I don't know of any reports of gold being found in this particular region, but Spain does have gold. Anyway, there's a particular spot. If we walk up this dry river valley, this arroyo, where I think is probably our best chance of finding something if it is here. So, today, we're not going to be stopping to look at plants. I'll try to resist anyway. We are going to be marching up here to what is in the rain a waterfall. Now, if I do sound out of breath as we're walking up here, it's because, for one thing, we're walking up an incline, a steady incline, and I'm walking at speed, but also I'm carrying rather a lot of water in my backpack because there's no water up here to do panning, so I'm going to carry my water with me. I haven't got exactly the right equipment, but I've got something I think will suffice. I went to a shop yesterday and bought a plastic saucer that's supposed to go under a plant pot and a washing up basin, and I think we'll be able to do some form of rudimentary gold panning with that. Shout out to Dan Hurd Prospecting on YouTube, where I think if there's anything I do know about gold panning and gold prospecting, I learned it there. So I think if there's anything good or successful about this video, he gets the credit. If there's anything bad or stupid, I get the blame. That seems fair, doesn't it? Check out Dan's channel on YouTube. He seems like a really lovely guy, and he finds a lot of gold. Certainly more than I think I'm going to find today. We'll just take a little breather in the shade of these cliffs here and look at the actual features of the terrain here. So you can see there's a track that's been used as an actual road, but there's also what's obviously here a watercourse. And so just thinking about the sorts of places we're going to look, what we need to figure out is whereabouts would water slow down on this kind of little watercourse. So in the lee of a boulder. So just down here we've got some rocks creating a bit of a, well, kind of tiny waterfall. And so just in the lee of those rocks there, well, and concrete blocks, just down there might be actually quite a good place to look for gold if we were looking here. Because it's where the water slows down a bit that the heavier particles will settle out. Obviously in places where the water is flowing fast, it has enough energy to carry the gold along. But when it slows down, the thing that settles out first is the heavier particles, which might include lead, either natural or otherwise. But one thing that does happen around here is a lot of shooting. This is a ground that's used for hunting wild partridge, rabbits, other small game, and so there's likely to be some lead shot in the soil, and that might be all we find today. However, if I manage to separate that out from the rest of the soil, that at least, I suppose, will be some indication that my panning technique is a workable one. If I manage to separate out something heavy from the general soil, then that should be a little bit of a mark of indication that I'm doing something right. Now, we ought to talk about the legalities here. I don't have any mineral rights to be actually doing this here. So anything we do find today, I have to just leave it here. So this is a recreational bit of gold panning. This is not to try to make my fortune. I very much doubt we'll find anything beyond perhaps a few very small glittery flakes if we're lucky. But anything I do find has to stay here because I don't have the right to take it. So this is more of a experiment. This is true prospecting, I suppose. I think we go around a couple more bends and then we take a little diversion off the actual track and follow the course of the river, or follow the course of what would be a river in the wet season. I do wish we had a little bit more time today to stop and just enjoy the flora and some of the fauna of this really beautiful location, but we are on a mission today. Right, this is where we leave the track. So the track bends around to the right here, and the watercourse goes off down this way, and there is a kind of a smaller track, and it is a marked track, so you know, I'm not trespassing or anything like that. There's a trail marker, but the track goes up the hill there and across the top. This watercourse does actually rejoin the track further up here and crosses it, but the location we're looking for is just around, it's just up in this little kind of canyon here and just around the corner. Another trail marker to indicate that we are on the right track. It really is such a beautiful place, this. I don't know if it comes across on video how stunningly beautiful this is. I've seen gardens which were not so well landscaped as what nature has done here all by itself. So we're starting to see bedrock exposed, which is a good thing, because one thing I have learned from downherd is that gold will tend to settle down. If there's sediments and whatnot, gold will tend to settle down and sit on top of bedrock. So what we need to do is find a place where water might have been slow moving, such as right here actually, but we'll have a look further up first. So water may well have cascaded over these rocks and then slowed down a bit just here in the lee of that big rock. And so that little pocket right there could be promising. But we're going to go further up first. And so we are walking now through what's a series of, when the water's flowing, a series of rapids. No chance of that today. It's been no rain for quite a long time. There's no rain forecast today, so we're not at risk of coming a cropper from a flash flood. That would be bad, but it's not going to happen today. So yeah, again here you can see there are rocks. There's a little pocket behind there we could probably investigate. Somebody's marked the trail with a stack of stones. But I want to get round to this bit where there's, well, what I would describe as a dry waterfall. Except it's not always dry, of course. It's just up there somewhere. Here we go. So these rocks here would form a bit of a waterfall, and I just happen to know that there is a deep pocket underneath one of these. It may not be this set of rocks actually, but there is a big pocket down there where the water's cascaded over this rock and carved out a big hollow. That could potentially be a very productive spot, but I want to try and dig in places where I'm not going to have to dig up plants if I can. So here's another spot here where I'll probably get some soil out of here, scratch down to the bedrock down here and excavate that little pocket in a minute. But we'll go a bit further up. There's the big one up there, or bigger one. So this is a big chunk of bedrock that must be a little bit harder than the other rocks surrounding it, and so the water has not been quite so successful in wearing this away. But look at that down there, enormous, great big hollow pocket. We'll definitely get down there if we can and have a little bit of sediment out of the bottom of this hole. But you can see where the water's gone. Look at this, you can see the water has carved a channel as it's come down here. If there is gold in this locality, there's a quite strong possibility of some of it being down there. So I think we might start here. So this is my makeshift equipment this morning, a bit of a small pan really. It is just a plant saucer, but it's approximately the right shape. It's not all that durable, but we're not going to be using it forever. And a washing up bowl. And my mum has lent me a trowel and a little weeding hoe that I'll be able to use to scratch out some soil from down there. So the next thing to do is get down there and get a sample. Okie dokie, well here we are. And then we'll just go down, and I can feel the rock there. So we'll just sample some of that. No point carrying the big rocks up. Alright, there's about a pan full. Not a huge pan, obviously. Let's just make sure I can get out of here. So that's my sample. And that's why my breathing was heavy on the way up here. 6 litres of water, well 7 including my drinking water. I'm just going to get rid of the big rocks because we don't need those. Okay, well here we go then. This is the first time I've ever done gold panning, so be kind. This is not my drinking water supply, by the way. So, if I understand it correctly, what we're to do is, see if I can get this so you can see what's going on. Give it a little shake like that. We're just going to try and shake and then wash off the lighter stuff. So just giving it a shake with the water, allowing the heavy stuff to settle down, and just try and wash off the lighter materials. And we will just pick out the big stones because they're just getting in the way. I'm not expecting that we're going to find nuggets the size of your fist anyway. Okay, now considering I am a gold panning noob, rate my technique. Like I say, anything good I've learned about gold panning, I learned from Dan Hurd. So he gets the credit for anything I'm doing right. I get the blame for anything I'm doing wrong. Okay, and again we can pick out some of these bits of gravel. I think we might be in a good position to just knock it back and have a look and see what we've got. So, bit of water in there, wash it back. Well, I am seeing some black sands there, not a lot. I'm going to keep going. Get rid of those big stones on top. Now there might be something that's a little bit less than optimal about this pan, because obviously this is not intended for gold panning, this is meant for going underneath the plant pot. So it might be that there's something about the shape of this pan that's less than ideal. But we should bear in mind that gold prospectors in historic times also just used frying pans or whatever was available to them. Right. I'm going to now take that over into the sunlight and have a little peek and see if we can see anything sparkly in there. Well, I don't see anything. Which might mean one of several things. It might mean there's no gold down in that hole. It might mean there's no gold in this whole locality. Or it might just mean that I'm not doing the right things. Although I do think I got that mostly right. Anyway, we probably shouldn't be too hopeful for the first pan to be brimming with sparklies, but yeah, I can't see anything in there that's... There are some yellow coloured rocks in there, but critically they're not the ones that are staying behind when I wash the water over it like that. There's not a lot of black sand either, which is one of the kind of indicators I understand for the possible presence of gold. But yeah, when we roll that back like that, actually I think that's a bit of lead there, but I'm not seeing anything there that sparkles and stays in place when it's washed over. So never mind, if at first you don't succeed, destroy all evidence that you tried. No, try again. So we'll get another sample from down there, I think. Now I only have these 6 litres of water, so I have to conserve my water supply here, which means pouring the dirty water off of here back into the bottle. But don't worry, this is not my drinking water. I'll just pour the wet back into there, so I'll reclaim most of my water. Try not to get any gravel in there. There we go, got most of it back. And then that gravelly stuff can go back in the hole. Obviously not in exactly the same place where we're going to be digging the next sample. I'm going to try and get a bit further down, because I don't think we got completely down to bedrock just yet. I mean, really the best place might be right down there in the deepest part of the pocket, but I actually can't get down that bit, so I'm just going to clear some more of this off. Try and get a sample from down here. Right, well, second verse, same as the first. I've got to get out of here now. There you go. We use a bit more water this time. Might make things a bit easier for us. We're just giving it a kind of shake like that so that we don't lose anything on the first shake. and then side to side, and then, well, we can pick off these big ones off the top, and then we're into the shake and wash business. Now, it's worth mentioning that despite my amateurish panning technique here, certainly my technique is in need of development and would not be very efficient at retrieving all of the gold here. What I should be doing is probably good enough that if there is some gold here, I'll see one little flake at least. Okay, get the big rocks out again, and then we'll go and have a look and see if we've got anything. Nada. Let's knock that all back again. And yeah, it doesn't really look like there's very much heavy there at all, which is not a great sign. Again, that might be a little piece of lead right there. Just there. Little flake of lead possibly. But yeah, I'm not seeing a lot of heavy stuff in there at all. In fact, most of what's there is washing around with rather great ease. So I think, well, here's the thing. The best spot in here is going to be the bit I can't get to, which is the deepest part of the pocket, right down there. It's actually, I've seen this when it's been scoured out after a rain, and this pocket that you see here is deeper than I am tall, but it's also got another pocket there at the back of it, which is again another probably 1.5 meters deep, a really deep circular pit that's at the moment filled with rubble. If there was any gold here, it's probably washed down to the bottom of there. So I might be guilty of looking in the wrong place here, but there's not a chance of me clearing out that pocket today. And I don't think I can really dig down any further here. I did get down to bedrock here. So we're going to try, we'll wander back down this way, I think, and find a few possibly promising places down here. Maybe on a meander where the water goes out and bends round, which is where it would slow down, and perhaps that's where things would settle out. Anyway, so we'll wander back down, see what we can do. But first I just need to reclaim that water back into my bottle. So here's a possible bit. So it's like a mini version of what we have up there. We've got a tiny little bit here. So there's a pocket that's been worn by the water and a channel. And this pocket here has got some loose rocks in it. And I think probably I can move one or two of these loose rocks here and take a sample from underneath them. And that could be a promising spot. Now I'm going to try and put things back as I found them today. Oh, there's a little lizard. There's a little lizard under there. There he goes. Well, in that case, I'm not going to dig out his home. I'm going to put that back as it was. That's where that little lizard lives, and I'm not disturbing that. We'll find a different spot. Maybe down here at the foot of this fall. Right, so similar situation here, smaller rocks. I'll clear away some of these surface rocks here and try and get a sample from just underneath there, behind this big rock. Right, so I reckon maybe this bit here. Yeah, we're down to bedrock, so I'm just going to scrape that loose. And that's my next sample. I'm trying to get right down into the crevice in the rock as well, because if there is anything, that's where it'll be. Right, well, we're right down to rock. I've got
pretty much a full pan. It's only a tiny little pan that I'm working with here, so that also doesn't help because we're not starting with a very big sample. Anyway, let's give that a pan, but first we're just going to put these rocks back pretty much as they were. Right, I'm down beyond the next fall now, so we got a little bit here, but this just happens to be a convenient place to perch my camera so that you can see me working. If anybody comes walking up here, and they may well do today, I just might have to get out of their way. All right then. Here we go with pan number 3. So hopefully you'll get a slightly better view of what I'm trying to do here. By the way, the extra water falling in there is drips of sweat falling off my hat. So give it a jiggle like that, which just allows things to settle out by density. And then, well, I can pick out some of the big pieces. There's quite a lot of mud in here actually. Okay, and then we're going to be just really, there's not quite enough space here to work, but the idea is we just do that and allow the lighter weight stuff to wash off the top. And again, I'll just pick out the big rocks or the bigger pieces of gravel, unless they're, you know, they turn out to be gold nuggets, but that's looking increasingly unlikely. Okay, I think we're ready to go and have a look and see if we've got any sparklies. Yeah, there's really not much heavy in there at all. Let's just give it another go, more gently. No, I'm not seeing anything at all. Oh, is that one tiny little sparkly fleck there? It's really hard to say. Let's see if it moves when I put a bit of water over it. Yeah, it did. So that's not likely to be anything precious. It's probably just a little flake of mica or something like that. Now I know that from watching Dan Hurd's channel, I quite often watch it and think, is missing a great big golden nugget there? And it is just yellow rocks. There are a lot of yellow rocks in here. For example, over that side there's a yellow rock. I don't know what that looks like on camera, but here in real life, that's definitely not gold. In fact, there's nothing in here that's got a shiny metallic look to it at all. So nothing yet. We'll keep looking. I shall reclaim my water again, and then we'll move on to the next spot. Next part here, we're past those big rocks, and now we're into this kind of loose boulder bed and rocks and whatnot. There's a bit of clay here, and certainly water would have flowed over these rocks and lost some energy here, and then stopped and slowed down here. So I probably will see if this clay goes down to bedrock, and we'll scrape a bit of this clay off the bedrock and see what's in that. In terms of geology though, there's a lot of mixed up stuff here. There's a lot of different types of rock here. There are bits of what looks like, there's bits of basalt, there are bits of metamorphic rocks there. That would have been a sedimentary rock originally. That's been transformed by volcanic action. There are rocks with seams of quartz in them, little pockets there. Look at that. That sort of rock there could be gold bearing. These quartz seams, especially when they're all pockety like that, could have gold in them. And look at that rock there. I mean, that's a network of quartz seams. If I had the equipment, and of course if I had the mineral rights, we could bash that up and crush it and see if there's anything still trapped in the quartz. But anyway, what we're going to do is dig up a bit of this clay. Yeah, we're not going down very far before we hit bedrock there, so it's possible that there could be something in here. Clay is quite good at trapping things, being a little bit sticky. So we've got a different kind of sediment right there. Let's take a sample from that. Don't think we're quite as low down as we could be, but anyway, it's something different. So we'll go out of that one. One more scoop. Okay, let's get that panned out. I've lost about a quarter of my water. Obviously I'm not able to reclaim it all off of the gravel. When I tip the water off the gravel, some of it stays wetting the gravel, but never mind. Right, this is quite a different material here, so I shall have to give this a bit more of a shake. I might have actually filled the pan a bit too much. And there are also some big kind of clods here, which I have to try to break up. Yeah, quite different material anyway, so, you know, we might be lucky. All right then, let's get into a bit of sunshine and see what we got. Well, there seems to be some heavier stuff there, but even less dark coloured material. Nothing sparkly at all. I think we're just looking at far too lightweight sediments here. There doesn't actually even appear to be that much iron deposit here. No, I don't think so. So reclaim my water one more time and we'll head down and try and find something that's a bit different, that just looks a bit different, and see what we can do there. Right, I've got enough water left for one more pan. There's half a bottle of water, but of course that's the minimum amount I can use in the basin to actually do the panning. So I've just lost half of my water for wetting the gravel and soaking into the mud that we left behind. This little spot here, so water would have flowed over here, down through here, lots of turbulence here, and a dead spot right here. So what I'm going to do is move this rock here and take a sample from underneath of there. I think I'm going to try and get right into that corner in there without digging up these plants, which I think are some species of something in the lily family. I don't think that's grass. I think that's that might be a gladiolus actually. We said we weren't going to look at plants. Okay, so I reckon maybe from down there. It does look a little bit different. There's a little bit more kind of red-brown in this soil here, so that could indicate iron, which in turn could indicate other things. That is as much as will fit in a pan though, so let's pan that out and see what happens. Okay, well that panned down really quickly actually, which tends to suggest that a lot of what was in there was lightweight, maybe organic soil or light clays. Okay, last chance. It does seem a bit heavier, but there's really not much dark material. There's not much evidence of iron, which would be a companion mineral to gold. Just happens to be that the kind of conditions where gold is deposited are often the same kind of conditions where iron is deposited. Just the kind of volcanic conditions that prevail and create those solutes that crystallize out. Well, I'm gonna say that there ain't gold in these here hills. Actually, that's possibly a slightly hasty conclusion. The other possibility is I don't know jack about gold panning. Anyway, it's been a lovely day, and now I can enjoy a leisurely walk back down this valley, and we might have a look at a few plants on the way back. Well, here we go then, back down this, and I know I keep saying this, stunningly beautiful dry river valley. We're near Puerto de Mataron, in Murcia, southern Spain, southeastern Spain. It is such a beautiful day, and this is such a beautiful place. Look at all this rosemary. Rosemary, or romero in Spanish, and thyme as well. Tomillo. This is thyme. All around here and here and here. And one thing I can't tell you about, well, I can tell you about, but one thing you can't experience from this video, unfortunately, is the aroma of this place. You can't smell individual herbs like rosemary and thyme, but there is a beautiful aromatic, resinous fragrance to the place. There is a plant I haven't seen before, and we will stop to look, and I think that's a little geranium, a little cranesbill. I don't know which one. It might be cut-leaved cranebill. It might be one of the cranebills we have back home. There's also a little sedum here. I think that's a sedum. More of it just there. So, in conclusion, we didn't find gold here today, and I wasn't tremendously hopeful that we would. What I did want to do was to lay to rest my curiosity, because every time I come here I've wondered if there might be gold in these hills. It does seem like the right kind of terrain for it, doesn't it? I think it does, but we didn't find any today. And whilst we might lay to blame my panning skills, and I fully accept that my panning skills are very undeveloped, I should have at least found black sand if there was gold here, I think. Look at this lavender in full flower. Being enjoyed by bees of many different species, and down there a little bee fly as well. It's not a bee, that's a bee mimic fly. So yeah, I would never dream of claiming that I have any kind of expertise about gold panning, other than what I learned from watching other people do it. I think if there was gold here, we should have found black sand here. and I found little to none of that. So I think even if my gold panning skills were desperately poor, which is a possibility, I should have at least found that, and I didn't. So I think the conclusion is there probably isn't very much, if any, gold deposits in this particular valley. Now this particular valley just happens to be the one that erodes out of this set of hills here, so that doesn't mean that there's nothing in the next valley over, because the geology here is quite varied. See, there definitely are iron formations in this geology. That is definitely a piece of iron ore there. Just can tell by the rusty patina it's got on it. That's a piece of iron oxide, and there are pieces of that scattered around this locality, and of course probably the yellow in that rock there is iron in some form or other. But yeah, maybe it just wasn't the right place. Never mind, eh? So you know, next valley over there might be nuggets the size of your fist. Although I tend to think that if there were, they'd have been mined out ages ago, because, you know, the Spanish have, let's say, a historical interest in acquiring gold. So I think if it was here, they'd have known about it. And whilst they might not have mined it all out, there would have been some history of gold mining here, and there isn't. There is history of silver mining, lead, copper, iron. Anyway, we didn't find it today, and I don't think it's here. However, it's been a lovely day out, and as I say, I just absolutely love this place, and it has scratched that mental itch I had, so I don't have to wonder about that anymore. And a big thing of mine actually is stop wondering and find out. You know, we spend a lot of our, well, I do anyway, a lot of my life wondering about things. And if I'm not careful, I can end up with my head full of things I wonder about and never really know the answer to. And so for things like this, where it's relatively simple to find out, the answer is to stop wondering and try. Probably actually the answer to quite a few things in life, although not necessarily all of them. Anyway, I hope this has been an interesting video. I've had a nice day out, and it's going to be a lovely walk back down, and just going to walk back down for a bit of a kind of just a very simple lunch of some local bread and ham and cheese and tomatoes, perhaps a glass of wine. I hope this has been interesting. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.